Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 217.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary Podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, J Massey.
So, if you can imagine, my wife couldn't eat or drink. I couldn't walk or talk. That's called making less than no money, right? So I just want you to understand that everything I come at you with is from that standpoint. What does that also mean? That means I'm not very good at accepting your excuse. Does that make sense? I'm not good at it because if you have a place to stay tonight, if you have the ability to talk, you're not expecting a phone call from anyone that says your spouse or significant other is about or could be passing away tonight, and you know with the reasonable assurance that you're going to eat tomorrow, you're all ahead of where I started. Make sense? So I get it. That doesn't mean that you don't have demands on your time. I had them too. But I just want to give you the timeline. February 13th, 2008 was the day that we lost our primary residence and we then became professional squatters, for lack of a better way of putting it. Ladies, what is the day after February 13th? See, you thought he got you a bad Valentine's Day gift. That's what I gave my wife that year. It was awesome. 4 months later, or 12 days later, technically, that's when I started learning about real estate investing in live settings, similar to what you're looking at right here, learning what a deed was and what escrow meant and all those types of things. And then June 18th, 2008 was the day I closed the first transaction. So I want to paint the picture for you. First transaction was closed while squatting at bank-owned property, and I became a landlord. Is that weird or what? Yeah, it's kind of weird. Because how many of you have heard something like, you can't buy a house with bad credit? Who's heard that, right? My credit score was 398, but I had a rental property. How many of you have heard things like, if you don't have money, you can't buy a house? You've heard that one too? I used none of my own money or credit with a bad credit score and bought a house and rehabbed that one too without knowing how to buy the stuff at Home Depot. Kind of interesting, right? Since then, so about 3 weeks after that, we did 11 transactions in a week because real estate investing is a skill set. It's a what? Skill set. One of the things that will happen as I invest time here with you tonight is that I will ask you questions. When I ask a question, I expect an answer, because have you ever been in a conversation and realized that someone wasn't to you and then you felt a little that they weren't? And did that ever make you just like, exactly. I'm like, why am I here then if you ain't listening? Why am I talking? Now, and that's going to come into play later, but just keep that in mind. Here's the point. We did the wholesaling, the fixing and flipping, the wholesaling for a while, and that was great. Do I have any tax people in the room? CPA, enrolled agent, any of those? Accounting kind, bookkeeper? No? Oh, interesting. All right. It just produces a whole bunch of capital gains, which could be short-term capital gains, which long-term means you just give it right back to the government, and that's not cool. So, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. And I was like, well, cool. It's wonderful that I could now eat, but I kept having this tax bill and I didn't want to have to keep paying it. So I was like, what am I going to have to do? The solution was to keep more property. I was like, okay, great. How do I keep property, still buy them using none of my own money or credit, right? And that's when I started having to learn the new skill set of raising capital. That's what happened. And then that turned into owning and doing notes. I did those for a while. I got bored with notes. And let me tell you why notes are boring to me. It's because once you own the note, the only thing left to do is to wait for the check. That's boring. I got tired of it because there's nothing else to do. I needed something to do in that sense. So I then switched to buying apartment buildings. I started with a 12-unit building, then another 12-unit building. Soon thereafter, just made my way up. Like I said, I have a 182-unit building currently, is the largest one. Then I got bored with that. And I said, hey, what about commercial? And that was the next thing. And then it was like, hey, I want a cell phone tower because that would just be cool. And I'm like, wow, who didn't know that you could actually own a cell phone tower? Okay, cool, excellent. Really cool. Best tenant on the planet, by the way. I'm also looking for billboards because they're kind of similar. It's really awesome. So those things begin to just challenge me. And that's when I realized I'm just a cash flow guy. That's what I care about. I care about owning and controlling an asset and selling the use in the marketplace. That's the thing. If you feel like you're trapped in a job, the reason you're trapped is because you don't own and control an asset whose use you sell. Fix and flippers, I'm talking directly at you. You own the asset, but you sell the whole doggone thing just to make any money. You don't sell the use of it. And that's the difference. That one little mindset shift is the difference in what keeps you on that rat race and having to do that next deal and having to do that next deal and that next deal and that next deal. And the only way to ever get off is to buy, develop, and own and control an asset. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes, yes or yes? Yes. Okay, here's the thing. You've all been playing the game at a certain level, right? Many of you, if you've been on a sports team, who are athletes in the room? Like you played a sport, I don't care what one, even beer pong would count right now. All right, excellent. My point is, you played the game at a certain level, and other people played at a higher level. I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say that everyone in this room came here because you want something more than what you currently have. Yes? Yes, then you know what that means? You're going to have to play at a higher level. That's a higher level of energy, a higher level of focus, a higher level of concentration, and a higher level of empathy, compassion, and care for the customer that you actually serve. That's the part I think real estate investors forget, is that we still serve people. That's the most important thing. Not what trick can he teach me, not how do I get more people to give me more money, not how do I get someone to sell me a deal for $1, how do I get them to take this seller financing? No. How can I serve more people? That's the difference. Let me give you a quick example. Have you ever seen or did you know that kids could have a lemonade stand on the weekend? Right? Isn't that a business? Now, I'm not saying that I'm not asking you to go try to pay your rent that way, right? But it is a business. Do you realize the only difference is the question that they're asking between being able to pay your rent and just making a few dollars so that they can have that new dog that you really don't want them to buy anyway? The only difference is one question, and that's how many people can we serve? Here's what I mean. It's one thing to set up the lemonade stand on the weekend and say, okay, cool, great. We did 10 gallons of lemonade this weekend. But what if you asked even a kid and said, hey, how could we serve 1 million gallons of lemonade every weekend? I'm still in the lemonade business, yes? The only difference now is scale and systems. And when I figure out how to deliver 1 million gallons of lemonade every weekend, now I've got a business that you want to know more about. The number one reason many of you are having trouble, if you've ever had any trouble getting deals, is because your vision is too small. And nobody can see themselves being a part of it. I get that you may have never purchased a house before. I totally understand that. I got that. But if you're looking to raise capital, if you're looking to attract other people who have skill sets, talents, and things that you would like to leverage, think bigger. Much bigger. Take what you think is big and add a 0. And that's where you should start so that you can begin to attract other individuals to you who have the ability to make things happen. And then understand you're solving a problem. These are just some statistics to give you an understanding of why it's important that you and I do what we do, why and who we serve. For example, he says only 58% of Americans have a job right now. That's a lot of people who don't. We have 56% of Americans are currently covered by employer-provided health insurance. The median yearly wage in the United States is $26,261. Is that enough? Yes or no? Even if you're in the middle of Arkansas, you're like, yeah, that ain't enough, right? It just doesn't work, all right? The average American household is carrying around $75,600 in debt. If that number was in California, you probably just add a zero, right? And that's just the way it's going to go. Only the top 5% of U.S. households have earned enough additional income to match the rise in housing costs since 1975, which is code for very few of us can even afford to live anywhere, let alone here. As you continue, you see things like this all the time. These look like news headlines, yes? They look, yeah, all of that, I make sense. But we discount this and forget about this when we go out there into the marketplace. And that's a big problem. You've got to remember that this is exactly what's happening. The poorest 50% of all Americans now own just 2.5% of all the wealth in the United States. And somehow it's the other people's fault. But details. The point is that this is what's going on. The question is that most people, how many of you, here's just a quick way of thinking about something. How many of you have a retirement plan? Keep your hand up high. I don't care what kind. How many of you have a retirement plan? Now, keep your hand up, because I'm going to make a distinction. How many of you really have a retirement account that's just holding money, but you have no plan for exactly how to use it to retire? Does that make sense? Now, how many of you have a retirement plan? And how many of you actually really have a retirement account? Does that make sense? Most people have a retirement account. Very few have a retirement plan. They don't have a plan. They just got money sitting somewhere, and they call it, oh, my 401k is going to take care of me. See, I had the privilege of being a financial planner for a number of years up in Orange County, and, well, there's money up there. So it taught me what people do with it. Let me tell you what they don't do. They don't count on the 401k. They count on real estate, assets, things that they own and control and sell the use of. But let me ask you this. Who went to elementary school? Yes? Yes? Okay, cool. High school? Okay, how many of you went for more after that? You went for college. And how many of you were so special, you're like, I didn't get enough yet. I want more. Even after that, right? Right. Well, here's the cool thing. I, too, have a PhD. Public high school diploma. Right? That's where I go. But here's my point in understanding all of these things. How many of you have seen that the level of education has no correlation, or very little level of formal education has very little correlation to wealth? You seen that? And then you get a little irritated sometimes. Like, what makes the difference? What makes the difference? What's that? Yourself, yes. Would it be fair to say then that there's probably a different way of looking at things that we aren't being taught? Because between kindergarten and, say, 12th grade, were you ever taught how to build, own, or control a system? Anybody? At all? Here's my point. Hey, it worked. All right. How many of you have seen something that looks like this at least once? You've seen that? How many of you have not? Okay, let's go over a new rule. That new rule is called 100% participation. All right? What that means is that my expectation for everyone in this room is to participate. You are of one of two opinions. Here's a challenge in today's marketplace. People don't know how to make a decision. You are of one of two opinions. It's very clear. Have you seen this before or not? There is no middle. Okay? So let's try that again. How many of you have seen this before in one form or another? Excellent. How many of you have not? Awesome. Much better. Much better. See? I got you to make a decision. You have no idea how important the skill set that you just exercised is. This is what is known as the cash flow quadrant, made famous by Robert Kiyosaki, and it simply describes how money is earned in a capitalistic society, and regardless of who you think currently is in that White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, we still do say we practice capitalism, so this still works. Okay? What does that mean? That means the E stands for an employee. They literally get paid for the amount of time that they are present at the job. Has no correlation to their production. How many of you have worked next to someone like that? Got it. S, this is that self-employed person, usually has a license of some kind, but these are your doctors, your attorneys, your lawyers. They charge many dollars per hour, which is great. And they deliver very valuable service, right? But they're still tied to a clock. B, the business owner. He or she owns and controls the means of producing something, a product or a service. They have a system. The investor, they're out there because they have income, they have money, and you know what? All they want to do is use their money and have the money come back with more friends. That's it. That's what they want to do. But watch this. When you graduate high school, college, etc., and what are you told to go get? And of these 4 people, which one provides that? Got it. If you are that self-employed attorney, or that, especially that attorney or the mortgage broker, and you want the really big, fat, juicy loans on the really nice commercial buildings, or you want that client who's going to have, lots of legal work and for you to do, of these 4 people, which one is that likely to be? Interesting. Excellent. If you're that investor and you have money, but you don't want to really do anything, and you just want your money to be protected by a system that has the ability to bring more money back to you, who is likely the one in control of the system that you're looking to place your capital with? B. I find this interesting because that's the one person we're not taught to be. How many of you, when you graduated high school, college, you went to an entrepreneurial fair? Or was it called a job fair? Right? See? It's how you look at these things. Let me give you a quick definition of why this is important. Part of the challenge in you getting real estate done is that A, you actually are looking for money and you're looking for deals. That's the problem. That's not what entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs solve problems. That's what we do. As a real estate entrepreneur, we just happen to solve problems as they connect to real estate. That's it. When you learn to look for problems and not properties, you'll find more deals. Right? No problem. I will. When you learn to look for problems, not properties, you'll find more deals. We just had the case study. What was your name again? Kim and Jason. They were up here. How many of you heard the problem? Did you hear the problem? Yeah. I don't know if that's what Kim was marketing for, but that was the reason the deal was available for Jason, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does that make sense? But you're too busy looking for a deal to buy, but not trying to solve anybody's problem. Here's the cool thing. How many of you got friends that got a problem? How many of you got friends that got a problem that like to talk about the fact that they got a problem? and you know what happens when people have problems? They're surrounded by other people with problems. And if you happen to become the person that knows how to solve that person's problems, you know what the other thing that happens is? They never shut up. They say, this person, Kim solved my problem. You don't understand. You got to talk to Kim. Why? She solved my problem. What'd she do? Does it matter? I don't have a problem anymore. Does that make sense? It's not about price at all. How many of you think I'm like crazy when I say that? Like, you be honest. How many of you think I'm crazy when I say it has nothing to do with the price of the property? Okay, good. Let me give you an example for those of you too scared to admit it. Who has ever been to the emergency room? You've been to at least once. Yeah, right? Man. So let's just imagine for a second, your arm is bleeding profusely. You're going to the emergency room. As you're going to the emergency room, you walk through the door. They can clearly see that your arm is bleeding. You assume that they know how to fix this problem. That's why you're here. How many of you, before you let them touch you, ask, hey, doctor, what's your credit score? What school did you go to? How many times have you done that? Does it matter at that moment?
Not at all.
No, you know why? Because you got a problem. I could be in there, and all I got to do is put on a white lab coat. And because you have a problem and I'm at the hospital, what are you going to assume? That I can fix it. So does your financial condition matter? The answer is no. The answer is no. Your credit score is irrelevant. Your cash position is irrelevant. Do you know how to solve somebody's problem? Yes or no? And if you can do that, if you can walk someone through a solution, this business will work for you. Period.
Okay, so if you want to make sure that you understand a little bit more about what I was talking about there, you have an opportunity. For those of you who are podcast listeners, you've heard me say this before. I'm going to say it again. Grab a copy of my book. It doesn't cost you anything other than the ability to send a text message to 72000. Again, the keyword is book. Text the word book to 72000, and I'll send you an electronic copy of my book, Cash Flow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. If you want, you can go check it out on Amazon. It's there. You could pay for it there if you'd like, or you can get it for absolutely no cost by going over to cashflowdiary.com/free book for those of you that are international or not near a cellular device to be able to send a text to the keyword book 72000. Now, with all that being said, hopefully as you continue to progress here with us on the podcast, you want to get more information. Another way to get some free stuff is just to go over to Twitter. We're over there at Cashflow Diary. Again, that's at Cashflow Diary. Catch us up there, say hello or anything that you would like, and we will take it because we're just looking to make sure that we are delivering the things that you want to hear. Now, with all that being said, let's get back to this event so that you can learn some more.
Acquisitions.
Oh, we haven't gotten that far, but yes. The point is, if everything is equal, here's the really big thing. In a traditional world, everything's working, financing's working, realtors are actually doing their job. Lenders are actually lending out money. Interest rates make sense. All that stuff. There's very little need for an investor because we only play and have an opportunity when there's a problem. If it's going to work naturally, then let it work naturally. She did the right thing when she was like, hey, why don't you list this sucker? Oh, we don't want to do that. Okay, what do you want to do? That's what creates creative acquisition right there. If you're willing to stop and find the problem. If you don't do that, whose fault is it? Yours. No others. It's your fault. Thing to understand is that when you begin to lay out a plan for people, they can follow it. You can teach someone how to do those very things. I'm not going to say anything today that I think is going to be earth-shattering or tremendously new. I think what's different is that you just don't realize how to create value. So, I'm going to do my best to teach you with one of the best examples I can think of. What is this? What's that? It's a $100 bill. I'm going to ask the question again. What is this? It's okay. Some people say it's money. What else? Opportunity. Who said that? Note. Yep. It's a what? IOU. That is very accurate. That is very accurate. But what else is it? I haven't heard it yet. Yes. There you go. What was that? Tracy? This is a piece of paper. Yes? Okay. May I borrow a sheet of paper, please? As it currently stands in its current form, how many of you, what is this? What is this? Which piece of paper do you want? Raise your hand if you want this piece of paper. Raise your hand if you want this piece of paper. Okay. Why do you want this piece of paper over this piece of paper? One has more value, or at least a perception of value. Why does this one currently have more value? Because what? Because I tell you it's $100. Okay, because what?
Exchange, trade.
Yes, it's a medium of exchange. That is very, very true. The only reason it has value is because you and I agree it does. There is no other reason. It's because you and I agree it does. And more importantly, those with the guns say it has value. That's why it has value. There is no other reason. Let me know if I'm wrong. Okay, they got more guns than me. They say this is valuable. I agree. That's pretty much how it goes. Right? Now, watch this. May I borrow that pen, please? Excellent. Is it Javier? All right. Here we go. I, J Massey, O, U, Javier. How do you spell last name? Notice how he spells it? Because he wants me to get it right? He wants me to get that right. I owe you, let's just go $10,000. Now, let's pretend, let's say I sign this, I get it notarized. Javier, if this is signed and notarized, which paper do you want now? This one or this one?
I'm going to take the rate.
You're going to take this one. Why would you take this one?
More value.
More value. Why is it more valuable? Because we agreed. And we know. Well, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But here's the point. How long did it take me to create $10,000 of value for Javier? Didn't take that long, did it? Here's the challenge. You and I can't out-earn the rate at which they can print. We've got to become smarter. Today. Period. We can't out-earn the rate at which they print. So in this particular case, you have to learn how to print your own money. Make sense? That's what I love about real estate. And the second thing is, most of us aren't asking a very important question, and that question is compared to what? We don't realize the value that we are actually creating for people. So I'm going to give you an example, and it's going to require some math. Now, I know I just said the M word, and some of you just turned off, all right? But how many of you like money? Excellent. How many of you like math, though? Okay. Do you realize that math and money are the same thing? So how many of you now like math? Yay, right? It's the same thing. Math and money are the same. Sorry, I am not going to sign this. I know you were thinking it. But I want to give you just a quick understanding and example, because this is what's going to blow your mind. All right? You don't realize the value that you're creating or have the potential to create. All right? So let's pretend for a second that you have a desire to retire. Is that anyone in this room like that? Yes? Perfect. Retirement is simply having more money come in than go out without working. Is there a law that says you can't do that at 18? 28? 30? Some of you are like, go higher, faster, right? Right? I understand. So there's not a law against it. So you could do it at any time you'd like. For the sake of example, let's just say you wanted $100 a month. Is that enough to retire on? No, it's probably not even enough for your cell phone bill, but you get my point. How many months in a year? 12. So how much is that annually? $1,200. So if you wanted to earn $1,200, that's it. You have many choices of doing that. Obviously, we know we can trade our labor, but we're not talking about labor anymore. I want you to understand the value of owning and controlling an asset and selling the use of it in the marketplace. What's a very common asset that banks like to pitch and sell? CDs, also known as a certificate of depression, in case you were wondering. Okay? So for the sake of argument, I'm going to go find out what the best possible interest rate we can get on a CD is at this particular moment, according to bankrate.com. I'm just making sure the internet over here is still connected because it does not seem like it is. There we go, bankrate.com, boom, boom. Close that. All the bankers just hid. And they're like, oh no, please don't do that. CDs, let's go with a 5-year CD because we know if we leave it there longer, they'll give us more for it. So let's just look at it. Let me sort by, so the highest number I see is 242. Do you see a number higher? Well, okay, so we'll use 245, sure. So do you see any number higher? No, so that means they'll pay us a whopping 2.45% per year on the money. Make sense? So the question I have for you is, if you wanted to earn $1,200 in retirement, and this was your investment vehicle of choice, how much money do you have to have in the bank? I'll tell you how to figure it out. Really simple. Remember, math and money are the same. All I'm going to do is take $1,200 and divide by 2.45%. That's all I'm going to do. Someone's got a calculator. What is the new number? 48,979. Now, how many of you have the ability to pay your bills, do what you're currently doing, and sit $48,000 on the side so that you can hopefully get $1,200 a month? A year. Right, $1,200 a year. Are you beginning to get the picture? How many of you have been like, and have ever said to yourself, I would totally do real estate if I could just find the money? Be honest. You realize outside this room, this is what a lot of people are doing. And the only reason they don't know they have an option is because you haven't told them. There is no other reason. There is an oversupply of money right now. There's a reason that there's 2 best hard money lenders in San Diego in the room. There's a reason. You know why? They got too much doggone money because they're printing it too fast. There's a reason interest rates are what they are, because it's supply and demand. And this is not rocket science. When supply is high, prices low. When supply is low, prices simple. Clues have been in front of you the entire time. There's too much money out there. And the money doesn't have enough quality options because the money that's in CDs, they're not asking compared to what? There is no other system that they have access to at the moment. So is 2.45 better than 0? But not by much, especially after you think about things like inflation and taxes, right? But let me ask you this. How many of you are out there in the marketplace actively letting people know, hey, this is what's happening to your money, and by the way, if you don't want that to happen, I can help you? How many of you are actively marketing that message to somebody? Now you know why you don't have a deal and you don't have money. Because you're not telling the soul that this is going on. That is the secret to everything else I'll talk about. You educate to dominate. Period. You educate to dominate. How many of you feel like you're like smarter all of a sudden simply because you saw this? You're like, dude, I just learned something. Right? You're going to go home, tell your spouse, guess what? Get a calculator. She's like, what did they teach you? Why are you going, And that's what's happening. How many of you think there are people who have at least $50,000 in a retirement plan? Like in this room, like in this hotel, like in this zip code, somewhat, right? Why do you think the racetrack is busy? Because that's an option that some people are choosing. That's the option they're choosing. Because they don't know a better option, because the racetrack does a really good job of saying, hey, compared to what you could do, choose us. And people are going, yeah, sounds great. And the only reason they're not choosing you is because they don't know that you can help them. Is it possible, Kim, please help me. Is it possible in the realm of possibility, using real estate to get a little bit better than 2.45? Okay, just a little, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not a secret unless you choose to let it stay that way. This is why you're not getting stuff done. But, okay, let's talk about that idea. What would it take in order for you to do that exact same thing using real estate? Let's look at that. What's that?
Syndication.
A syndication, absolutely. How many of you do not know what he meant when he said the word syndication? Okay, thank you for being honest. It's just simply, I'm going to keep it simple, raising capital that's not yours and using it in investment. Done. Was that? Legally. Who said that legally? Yeah, right. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say, right? That's all I'm going to do for the moment. Don't try to make it any fancier than that. See, a lot of financial industry professionals, and maybe you're in this room and guilty or not, and if I offend you, realize that's your problem, not mine. We try to use 12-syllable words to explain a concept that could be done much simpler, and I hate that. That is like one of my biggest pet peeves, because it keeps people who need the help in the dark, right? So just understand, it's just raising capital that's not yours legally and using it in an investment. Now, here's the thing, and this has been the case for a long time. In order to get a real estate deal done, or any business for that matter, typically 4 components are needed: knowledge, time, money, or credit. Say that with me. Knowledge, time, money, credit. It's 4 components. The best thing about real estate is leverage in so many different ways. In general, you can draw a dotted line straight down the middle. Typically, the person who has the knowledge and time does not have the money or credit. And the inverse is also true. Typically, the person with the money or credit does not have the knowledge or time, or chooses not to invest their knowledge or time doing that thing. So it makes a perfect partnership when you realize that. So do you think if there's an oversupply of money right now, which of the side of this equation is more in demand? The left or the right? The left. Because I gave you an example earlier. I said, how many of you have done a deal? There were a number of you that raised a hand. How many of you done 2? Just that one distinction, from 1 to 2, hands went down. 10, more hands. 20, hands down. 100, 200. Do you get my point? At some point, I was the only one left standing with the experience. Does that make sense? So, for example, if you wanted to invest in a cell phone tower, and this room was my source of capital, who besides me has that experience? So who's likely, if that's what this room wanted to do, who's likely to end up with the money to go do it again? You or me? Why? Because I have the knowledge and the time and the system's already set up. That's it. How many of you think you could learn and set up systems? Great! That is it. I've already explained to you I'm not handy, so I don't know how to do rehabbing. For those of you who want to come to me later and go, hey, like, what kind of carpet and tub do you use? I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to talk to my operations person, because I don't know and usually don't care until it's time to write the check. Okay? Some of you are going to ask me. Now, some of these questions I can't answer simply because I do them so frequently, and I just know the answers. But that's not my primary function in the business. That's not what I specifically do. It's not the best use of my skill set and time. I'm excellent at building systems, teaching other people to do the same so that they can free themselves from their job. How many of you, how old are you again? Thank you. How many of you wish when you were 32 that you could have retired? See, what's really cool, because this isn't about me, this is about a guy I helped do that right here. 32. How many of you are now mad at him? Right? You're like, dude, you were supposed to suffer more. All he did was build systems, learn to raise capital and deploy it into the marketplace and tell people, hey, you got an option other than 2.45%. Let's look at something a completely different way. Because this is compared to what? We're going to keep the same 2.45%. Let's pretend for a small second you have somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 units. Each unit, we're just going to say, produces $300 a month. 300 times 300. Somebody?
90,000.
300 times 3. That math is money. This is where you want to really get it right. Right. Okay? And how many months in a year? What's the number? 1,080,000. Mess up some zeros in a second. Boom, boom. I like that number too. Here's my question to you. How much money would you have to have in the bank in order to have that happen? In the bank, at 2.45%, how much money would you have in the bank to have that happen? How much? Do the math. It'll be fun for you. How much? $44 million. Right? 1, 2, 3, boom. So I'm going to ask you again. How many of you doing what you're currently doing have the ability to pay your bills, take kids, little Johnny to soccer practice, take a vacation or two, and still put $44 million on the sideline? Anybody? Okay. However, because of the benefits of real estate, you can learn to do the whole gosh darn thing using none of your own money or credit and only required knowledge or time. How many of you think that's cool? I do too. The difference is how you think. That's really it.
Now, on that note, what we're going to do is we're going to stop right here for this particular episode. And I'm just going to ask you to listen on Thursday. It's been fun talking to you today. You know, I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.